Hey everyone, Cool Kid here, and welcome back to Weird and Obscure Stuff, the rapid-fire Warframe trivia series that is slowly but surely approaching the length of One Piece. I don't want to waste too much of your time, so spoiler warning like always, and without further ado, let's rock. If you equip regular bow skins on Artemis Bow, the model for the skin's quiver becomes the arrow. Swift Mercy's Mercy kill speed doesn't apply to thralls. Normally, Tenet weapons that are bought from Glast have no icon next to them that shows their source, unlike regular Kuva and Tenet weapons which do. However, if you rename one of these weapons, it will have the icon, which can let you come up with some fun names. Corpus interception nodes have collision and can be stood on, while Grineer and Orican towers have none and can be phased through. Corvex's Chirinka pillars can lift the Jackal, but only in the circuit for some reason. The pillars themselves also block the grid wall attack. Wukong and Jade can use their exalted weapons before the casting animation actually finishes. Quick flashing lights warning. These shelves near Aoi explode in a bright flash of light when Bulla jumped on, and even stranger, they actually use your Warframe's energy colors. The secondary color is for the initial flash before it rapidly fades into the primary color. For whatever reason, a toaster can be found on the stage in stage defense. Unlike other Mark I weapons, the Mark I Strun doesn't mention its Mark I status in its description. EDA and ETA rewards will combine in the end of mission screen if you do them back to back. Gaara's Mass Vitrify stops Legacytes from escaping as they can't move through it. On top of that, Spectral Rage can also be used to stall them out, as Legacytes will focus on attacking it over escaping. This Lua side room houses a single crate behind this breakable wall, which I'm gonna have to talk for a minute to show as it takes some effort to reach. So, did you guys hear that scientists studied brains from 2016 to now and found that the amount of plastic in our brain has increased by 50%? The average person has about 7 grams of plastic in their brain these days. That's as much as a plastic spoon. There is about a spoon's worth of plastic in your brain. Your Necromech's landing VFX use your Warframe's energy color the first time they're summoned in a mission, with every subsequent summon using the mech's energy colors. If you bullet jump right as you land in a social space, you'll perform a weird neutral bullet jump where you go straight upwards with the height of a normal jump. Now time for a small section on fun asset reuse. The Juno Sapper Moa uses 2 Statacores as its gun. The spines on the Rabbleback Hyena are made up of enlarged Avia armor shoulder pieces. The back mount thing on the Icemire Hyena is the Sentinel Coltech mask. And finally, Vapus Prod crewmen use K-Drive engines as their shoulder armor. Weirdly enough, Archons also wear a unique armor set that isn't obtainable by players. I just think that's strange because it seems like you'd be able to buy this. When a birthday for Minerva or Velemir is present on the calendar, it shows their Kim profile picture while in the orbiter, but if you're in Holvania when you view the calendar, they'll show up as their pixelated portrait like every other Hex member. The icon for Varuna's 4th ability, Ulfrin's Descent, shows 5 wolf heads instead of the 4 you'd expect. I assume this 5th one represents Varuna herself, but it's an interesting detail regardless. Wrathful Advance resets your maneuvers, allowing you to aim glide and bullet jump repeatedly while in the air. Kaya opens a portal to the garage when any mission is queued, not just when you queue Temporal Archimedia. Sabotage resource caches don't count for the Kleptomaniac Nightwave challenge, despite being lockers. Equinox's animation sets are 35 platinum, presumably because she's got 4 of them. Mesa's Waltz makes Mesa grab her regulators with a weird offset, presumably because they weren't meant to be held this way. This airlock tile on the Zariman always shows Corpus ships in the distance, even if the Grineer are the current faction. If you equip the Lon skin onto the Eden and throw it, the drill part of the skin completely disappears while it's in flight. Juviri Capturicines will have interactable objects like fragments and fishing spots present. Despite the fact that they can't be interacted with, they'll still have indicator lights that imply otherwise. The 1999 loading screen forces corporeal mode on Zaku even if they have skeleton mode equipped. If you have any potency mods that are used up and view the mod section of the codex, then the potency mods there will also look like they're used. Temple puts their hands on their waist when loading into the game and has a unique getup animation. This also applies to the Neil emote. Noctua can use the Grimoire Day of the Dead skin, despite that being a skin specifically for the Grimoire. Atlas's Rumblers scale in size with ability strength, getting bigger with higher strength or Short King status with low strength. Duviri Gladius enemies can have their swords jammed by Shooting Gallery. This works on a bunch of melee units, I'm just highlighting the Gladius here specifically. Grineer revived by Shadows of the Dead can use Ramparts. Electric Shield blocks line of sight for several things you wouldn't expect, like Theorem Contagion. Ayatan's and Maru missions appear fully socketed despite actually being empty. When in the arsenal and viewing Temple, Lizzie can be stacked if you select Temple repeatedly with good timing. Dying as Sevagoth's Shadow increases your death count in the end of mission screen. Despite the musical Simon Says room not counting for the Nightwave Hall of Ascension challenge, a screenshot of said room appears in the tutorial for the challenge if it's right-clicked. The Javlok Harkonar skin doesn't have the skin equipped in its arsenal icon. The turret on the Scaldra TI-92 is massive when viewed in the Codex. Eximus units killed by Ballistico Prime don't respawn as Eximus ghosts, which is kind of a bummer honestly. Ortus transmissions can appear over boss node transmissions if the timing is right. Rumblejack seems to be a broken Prova, which I'm shocked I've never noticed before honestly. The Exergus shatters a crystal and fires out its shards, reforming the crystal on reload. Thing is, having a magazine size above 1 will cause it to shoot with no crystal, making it look like the shards appear from thin air. The Acrid shows up as a hologram in the Grineer Chem Lab, despite being from the Bio Lab. There's also this weird LEGO lightsaber-looking hologram in the Chem Lab, which is actually used by Butchers in Mirage Prime's trailer. Chroma's Scorn buff builds up when enemies die to abilities in addition to melee attacks. Similarly strange, gas proc kills grant Fury stacks regardless of if a melee or ranged weapon generated the proc. Nidus and Nezha are the only Warframes to occupy 3 role categories. Bullet jumping into the ground and then jumping right after gives you a height boost. G-Glaive, why does your mom let you have 3 Sugatras? This area in the round table bar is a Family Guy reference. I don't have a source for this, I'm just making it up. Abilities are normally locked when in the Zeraman elevator, but Yoreli can bypass this by riding Marilina. I don't know that much about music, so I'm going to quote Discord member StarPlatinum69 for this one. Kullervo's number of crimes is due to his namesake symphony's opus number, being 7. The Sampity's first heavy attack uses the same animation as the Dax Malleus, and also sends you forward a short distance. This is honestly more cool than anything. The emotes Follow and Agree have the same icon in the emote wheel, despite being totally different animations. Angst uses Valkyr's Immortal skin in her preview icon, but not in her Codex entry. Forced procs aren't affected by the Tau status. Marilina's armor can be increased through Archon shards, which as far as I'm aware is the only way to increase Marilina's armor. Speaking of the fish, Trinity's Lifegiver passive applies to Marilina instead of Yoreli if she's being ridden. Damage from running out of life support and survival can't actually kill you. This also applies to the decompression damage on Eris. If Nef Anyo is a sortie target, assassination missions that roll for that sortie will be for the Sergeant. This is a reference to an older era of Warframe where the Sergeant himself was called Sergeant Nef Anyo. The Sestra gets smaller when in the skin selection menu, though selecting the None option makes it return to normal size. Sentients have no faction icon for Steel Path incursions or Nightmare missions. Liches generated with Protoframes will have the Protoframe's head on the Lich's shoulder, though even stranger is the coloration that the head receives. Arca shoulder pads fold down when aiming, which also lets you flap them. Arthur uses a normal picture of himself in his romance email, as opposed to the accolade glyph that's used by every other Hex member. The Riv Midgard shoulder armor has a piece of the Magor shoulder armor in its arsenal icon. Protoframes from Techrot Encore can be searched by typing in their surnames, like Velasco for Kaya or Valerian for Flare. The original 6 Hex, however, can't be searched for using this method. If Mesa enters Peacemaker with the Boolean Syandana equipped, it will leave behind an afterimage of the Syandana for several seconds. The Gatva appears in the game's opening cinematic intro, despite the fact that that intro was made way before the Gatva was introduced. Even more interesting is that the Aeolak appears to be a corrupted version of the Gatva, and it was also introduced before the Gatva was. To explain this, we can look back to the Stuviri weapons concept sheet from TennoCon 2021. This shows Gatva alongside Aeolak and Vian, which would go on to be Kullervo's heavy sword skin. It seems like they had this weapon in the oven for quite a while. The Zymos beads will try to home in on enemies in Grendel's gut, which makes the weapon's main gimmick just kinda not work. When viewing Earth from the orbiter, you can see that the wrong side of the planet is lit relative to the position of the sun. If you bullet jump in the opposite direction right before dive bombing, Zephyr will bounce much higher in the air than normal. Pluto's star chart model is actually a real-life photo of Jupiter's moon Ganymede, color shifted and flipped around. The AX-52 is based on the AK-47, and adding 47 and 52 gives you 99. This shit is so peak. Alright, that's it for today's video. Thank you all so much for 40,000 subscribers, and a huge thank you to all of my channel members for helping to fund my garbage content. Like and sub if you enjoyed, and I'll see you all next time in Volume 17. For the time being, you all can have another picture of my ancient dog Molly.